Hi, everybody. Thank you for the awesome introduction, Cyrus. I am super excited to be here today talking to you about how to be a mobile SEO superhero in a post-April 21st world. Now, Dr. Pete alluded to this already, but April 21st was the mobile-friendly algorithm change, and it was a big, big deal. It was the first time that Google had really communicated to the SEO community the date and the specific requirements of an algorithm update. And this was their attempt to get us all to comply with what they needed as part of this update. So it was a big deal, but as SEOs, we don't always necessarily trust Google. And the fact that they were being so transparent about this update kind of freaked people out. And so while Google called it the mobile-friendly update, SEOs, we can't resist a good headline, so we renamed it Mobilegeddon. And a lot of people were expecting the worst, something maybe like that. And Google loved the press that this algorithm update was getting because it meant more people were going to comply and become mobile-friendly by the deadline. So that was great for them. So they started saying things like, hey, this algorithm update is going to be bigger than Panda and Penguin updates combined. And so SEOs who weren't previously paying attention all of a sudden started paying attention, and things kind of looked like that. Everyone was freaking out. Everyone was having their little special moment meltdowns. And there was a lot of speculation about what was going to happen. And so we needed a superhero. And so my goal with today's presentation is to help you dissect this algorithm update so that you understand what happened and what you need to plan for in not only this update, but future mobile-friendly updates, because I think we all know they're going to happen. This isn't the last we're going to see of mobile. So as a mobile superhero, mobile SEO superhero, the first thing you need to understand is how do we evaluate the situation? What can we find out when we survey the landscape? And so my recommendation is that you think about these things from a Google business strategist perspective and understand that the Google strategists know that mobile traffic is still growing. And that's not only because people are accessing the web on their mobile devices more, but they're accessing the web on more mobile devices. So it's growing at an increasing rate. The other thing that the Google strategist knows is that users, what they care about is getting the answer that they seek. They don't necessarily care about where the traffic goes and if it goes to your website or not. So what Google has been doing is slowly de-emphasizing web results. And that's particularly terrifying to us if we're SEOs or digital marketers, because Google is in some ways preventing traffic from getting to our site or using our own content to prevent traffic to get to our site. So that's a big threat. When you think of it from Google's perspective, though, their job is to they think their calling is to organize all the information so that it's easily accessible for users, to organize the information of the earth. They think this is a higher calling, and while historically they've done that by giving us some kind of amalgamation of 10 blue links, that's not actually what they see their job as. So they're actually becoming this presentation layer of the internet. They're getting between websites and users to make it a more user-friendly experience across a broader number of mobile devices. And that's hard. It's particularly hard because there are so many different mobile devices, but also so many different ways of creating mobile websites. So let's talk about the different kinds of mobile websites that are out there. First off, we have the old school m.mobile websites where you have mobile-specific subdomain that has pages that hopefully match up with corresponding desktop pages, and you can use what's called bidirectional annotation to have those two versions of a page point to each other so that Google knows to share the SEO value between those pages. So that's the simplest. The next we have responsive design, which is Google's favorite, and that uses one set of URLs with style sheets and media queries to help control how that content renders on a lot of different devices. So that's Google's favorite. The next option is what Google calls selective serving. And that is basically like kind of responsive design that happens on the server. So responsive design is client-side. Selective serving, the server recognizes the size of the device that you're on and sends the appropriate content so it doesn't have to be processed client-side. The last one is pretty new, but it's very trendy and it's very cool, and it's called single-page app architecture or single-page web apps. And these use things like HTML5 and JavaScript to make an experience on the web that looks a lot like a native app that you might download. So it's a much faster, slicker experience, and it doesn't even necessarily need new URLs, new page loads. It feels much more fluid, but that can create lots of problems for Google as a crawler since they understand the world based on URLs. So there are all these things out there in the internet that Google has to crawl and evaluate and rank order in some kind of meaningful way, but they're all different ways of doing the code. So that's a really difficult task for them. As a mobile SEO superhero, what you have to understand is that right now Google is considering the desktop rendering of every site the canonical version for evaluating the text and the keywords in that page or for that page. So let's unpack this. On an MDOT site, if you have a mobile version of a page and a desktop version of a page, as long as Google understands that those two pages are related, they're looking at the text on the desktop version of the site because they know on a mobile page you might cut out a little bit of text or you might paginate it differently, but they know that you're going to put the most text on the desktop version. So the desktop is canonical for the keywords, and that's also true on responsive design, which with responsive design you only have one URL, one set of content, but you may have something set up where the desktop rendering of the content gives you more text, but the mobile rendering gives you a little bit less. And then also now Google has started indexing deep screens within apps. So you can click on a link and get to open an app and get not to the beginning of the app, but somewhere deep in the app. And they've set up something that's a lot like the bidirectional annotation that we use on MDOT sites. And here again, the desktop version of the web page that the app screen is associated with is the canonical version of that content. So in mobile SEO for a long time, what we've done is we've helped companies reinforce the integrity of the canonical. With mobile content, there's a lot more that can go wrong, so you have to be a lot more specific about what content you want in the index, and we try and make the crawler as efficient as possible because sometimes it's got more to crawl. So when we honor the canonical, what we're doing is making sure that there is one URL and only one URL that renders for each piece of content on our site. And we're very specific in this one URL. We're saying it has to be exactly the same. So if the canonical version has a trailing slash, then it always has a trailing slash. If it has all lowercase letters in the URL, then it always has lowercase letters. We don't do things like have the home page work at domain.com / and also domain.com / default.php. That's two URLs that could render in your address bar, but give you the same content. So instead, we would say the default.php needs a server rule that will redirect it to the canonical version of that URL, which is the /. And so once we have those server rules set up so that we only have one version of every URL that can render and everything that's not that specific version redirects, then we reinforce that canonical by using it on the internal links, using it as a self-referencing canonical, using it correctly in the XML sitemaps, using it in all the 3ON redirects. And so that's how you honor the integrity of that canonical. And this is all desktop URLs frequently, but what happens is that makes it possible for your mobile content to rank. So if you're paying attention, you're saying, hey, wait a minute, Cindy, I just heard you talk a lot about the desktop, and I thought this was a mobile SEO session. I know, but this is mobile SEO superhero training, and you're going to have to answer a lot of questions. Sometimes it's a lot of different questions, but often it's the same question over and over again. And that question is, how is mobile SEO different from desktop SEO? You just finished talking a lot about the desktop. And the answer is, mobile SEO is a lot more technical than desktop SEO. We're doing a lot more to prevent errors and things like that. But it's also a lot less about specific rankings and more about the interaction of a user from the rankings to the website. The reason we focus less on the rankings is because the rankings are so darn variable from situation to situation. So there are a lot of different things that can change what rank order a website or different content can be on a mobile search. First off, we have, are you logged in or not? And often mobile users do not know if they're logged in on their phone. You usually are. There's also, where did you start your search? Did you start your search in Chrome, or did you start your search in Google Now? If you're on an Android phone and you have the search bar on your desktop on the phone, that's a Chrome, or that's a Google Now search, not a Chrome search. You'll get different results. Similarly, if you have location turned off, or if you're by default browsing incognito, again, those things will change not only the placement, but the display of the results and the ordering of the results. Now, the last thing is operating system. You will get different search results if you're on an Android phone versus an iPhone. They're not always wildly different, but often they are different enough. Also, Google has started this new thing that they're doing that if you ride in a subway or live in a basement, you might have seen, and that is the standard versus basic mobile search results. And they've tried this before, but they're bringing it back. And what it is Google is trying to understand when you're on a slow data connection, and they're trying to provide a better search result for someone on a slow data connection, and that search result is different from someone on a fast data connection. The differences are, in the basic result, they're not sending inline videos. They're not sending lots of images, carousels, cards. They're not sending the rich, lovely results that we get when we're on a standard result. The impact is they're also not sending things that are big like apps. So the app packs that Dr. Pete talked about will not show in a basic result. So you know from what Dr. Pete said that could change the rank order of what's on a page by as many as 6 positions. So over half of the positions can change from basic to standard. Now, the other thing that's important to understand about this situation is it's new enough that most of the big box keyword reporting platforms like Searchmetrics and BrightEdge and whoever else you want to throw into the mix, those platforms aren't taking these differences into account. And so when they're reporting on an average ranking, that average ranking can be pretty far off when you think it could go 6 up or 6 down. It's hard to perceive, and those tools are sometimes getting basic search results, sometimes getting standard search results, and it's not being broken out in your data. So that can make understanding rankings very confusing. So we just understand, in general, how are things ranking, and go from there. So let's dig into what are the fundamental changes that happened in Mobilegeddon, the mobile-friendly update. And this, if you remember nothing else from my talk, you should be paying attention right now. The fundamental change in the mobile-friendly update was a division of labor between the desktop crawler and the smartphone crawler. The desktop crawler is crawling and evaluating the text on the page to understand semantically the relationship between the keywords on that page and other keywords on the internet. The smartphone crawler is crawling to evaluate the user experience and rendering of your site. That's it. So, this is a portrait. This is how I like to think of the smartphone crawler. Adorable. But let's think about what Google was telling us about the mobile-friendly update. The only thing that Google cared about in the mobile-friendly update was us making CSS and JavaScript crawlable. Now, that actually has nothing to do with mobile friendliness. You can have a horrible mobile user experience, have a horribly unfriendly mobile site, and still have CSS and JavaScript crawlable. But this was a binary Google evaluation. Is it mobile friendly, yes or no? And the only thing in that calculation was, is the appropriate CSS and JavaScript crawlable? So that's kind of weird until you understand that it was just to make it mobile friendly for the smartphone bot so that they could paint a picture or imagine what the rendering of your content looked like on a variety of different devices. So the truth is, the smartphone crawler doesn't really understand more than just the rendering. And we've got this verified by Gary Iles at SMX Advanced when he said that if you take, for instance, a responsive design where we have text on the desktop rendering, but for whatever reason, no text on the mobile rendering, Google could still rank that mobile version of the page because it's using the desktop as the canonical, and it doesn't understand that that text isn't necessarily on the page. So as cute as the smartphone crawler might be, he's illiterate. Now, that's not the end of the story. If you're a black hat, don't get all worked up and decide to go and spam the smartphone bot. It's not a good idea because Miley Oye from Google said that Google is trying to match content. They're trying to prevent spam by evaluating how good a match the desktop to the mobile content is. We don't know exactly how they're doing that, but we do think that the mobile bot is learning to read or is reading on a very small level. So congratulations to the smartphone bot. Yay. All right, let's talk about mobile-friendly tagging. So if you're deemed mobile-friendly, you get this mobile-friendly designation in the search result. I'm going to show you some tools to figure out if you've got the mobile-friendly tag. Now, the easiest one is not a tool. It's just going to Google on your phone and doing a site colon query on your domain. This is the fastest way to get a site-wide or a big evaluation of a lot of different templates on your site, because you can just scroll through and say, all my major templates appear to be getting the mobile-friendly designation in search results. That's awesome. If you find that a particular page or template is not getting the mobile-friendly designation, then I recommend you switch to Google's mobile-friendly test. And they launched this tool just to help SEOs with the mobile-friendly update. This one goes one URL at a time, and it'll tell you exactly what content is being blocked that's preventing you from getting the mobile-friendly designation. So that's nice and useful. But that was the only feedback it was giving. We've seen them testing this tool and adding other stuff in that I'll talk about later. But right now, it was just binary about the CSS and JavaScript. Was it crawlable? The other thing to note is if you have a little bit of CSS and JavaScript that's not crawlable, sometimes Google's OK with that. They have a list of whitelisted domains, like ad services and stuff like that, that sometimes will block CSS and JavaScript, and they know about those, so they're not dinging you for that necessarily. They want you to make anything that you can control crawlable, and if you can't, often they'll still give you the mobile-friendly tag. Other tools you can use are Webmaster Console's Fetch and Render as Google. This came out before the mobile-friendly update, even before the hubbub about it. The fetch part of the tool will go and get the requests, so it'll know exactly what files are being requested and which ones of those are crawlable. And the render will show you what Google paints, the picture that Googlebot for smartphones paints, when they see it. Now realize that the two versions of the bot, mobile bot, or smartphone bot and desktop bot, they're doing different tasks, but they do work together. And Google has made a big point of telling us that content that's not visible or text that's not visible on the initial rendering of the page is being devalued. That's how we know they're working together. They're taking the rendering and applying that and understanding where the text fits into that rendering. And that's why they're focusing a lot on telling us right now that hidden content is devalued, and especially interstitials that pop up and will block content, those are devaluing the text behind them, because that's what they're trying to do, understand the rendering with the smartphone bot. You can also get graphs like this. If you have a large site, you can see in a big way how much blocked content you have. They're also giving feedback like this on user experience cues that have historically been in Google PageSpeed tool. And those are things that actually do make a website mobile-friendly. If you get these right, then you probably are mobile-friendly, but these actually aren't in the mobile-friendly evaluation yet. These are the ones we've seen being tested in the mobile-friendly tool results page, but they don't right now affect your ability to get the tag. So these are things like viewport settings, which is a screen size setting, font sizes, tap target sizes, mobile-specific errors like having flash or having faulty redirects. So those are things that are soon going to be in the mobile-friendly evaluation. They're not in there yet. They will be soon. The next thing that I think will happen after we get those UX ranking signals in is image-specific ranking signals, because images are particularly hard in mobile, and especially hard in responsive design, which is Google's baby. Google loves responsive design. The reason is you can send a beautiful, gorgeous, huge image to a desktop, but then you have to do something about how you send that massive image to a phone and not make it a really slow experience, a really bad user experience. So what you can do here is start building in sprites, which are collections of the small icons on your site. And they come across in one image, and then you use your style sheets to place those on the page. What that does is that minimizes the round-trip requests to the server to get the sprites, or to get the little tiny images. And round-trip requests are really what causes bad user experiences and slow load time on mobile. So when you put them all in one request, you save a lot of time, you make it a better experience. You can also do simple things like compressing and saving your image files correctly to the exact size that's needed on the page, and a low quality, as low as you can get away with without actually hurting the value of the image. Bigger sites are using image servers to handle this, where the server will recognize the device and send the appropriate image on the fly. That's super useful for saving time. And then the last one listed here is responsiveimages.org. This is something that was called out to me specifically by a Googler as a way to improve mobile usability. And what that is it's an HTML5 protocol for organizing images on a responsive design. And it allows you to crop, scale, zoom images to fit the different renderings of the page. And this is very subtle but very useful, because you can see in this superhero's example, notice the difference between the side of his head, the left side of his head, and the edge of the picture. That's actually being cropped at different points to make it fit, but still make it look really nice. So compare the desktop version to either of the phone versions, and his head is right up against the side. And they're doing that with HTML5. The real answer is you have to do all of these things to make it a good user experience and make the images fast. These things should be all working together, but it's just good to know about for right now. So Dr. Pete alluded to this, but there have been a lot of different changes in the mobile search result page and how they look. And it's not just the mobile-friendly tag. That's a big one, but there have been these other things that were happening around the same time as the mobile-friendly update that are really important for you to pay attention to. The first thing is, obviously, we're seeing more featured information, more answers, more aggregated results, more interactivity. But Google's also making a big effort to make things easier to see in a mobile search result. They're putting things in the packs. They're putting things in cards that have expansion opportunities. And they're putting things in carousels. So just easier to perceive and understand in a quick mobile way. Last, they're trying to be more semantic. They're using natural language, compound searches. They're using contextual information in a search. And they're trying to do a better job with entity understanding to group information by entity. And this probably is made easier by the division of labor between the desktop and the smartphone, but that's also making the user experience on the search result much better. So now, the next part of the superhero training is to understand intent. When you're a superhero, you have to understand people's motivations and intent. And what we need to know here is that Google loves intent. And this is a desktop screenshot where we see that Google is adapting the order of the top navigation to suit the intent of the searcher. So in the top example, we have a search for cute puppies. When people search for cute puppies, they obviously want images, or it's most likely that they want images. But when people search for something a bit more nebulous, like Google Play, images isn't first. They put books and web, shopping, apps in that order, but they're trying clearly to, in a subtle way, give you a better user experience by anticipating your intent. This is way bigger deal in mobile because they have more signals about your intent, and they know that they have less time. Google knows that mobile users want the answer fast. So just take a gander at all of these samples of how Google's trying to understand intent and meet it at the top of the query. Next, look at how few blue links you see on those pages. This intent stuff is pushing down web links. And so that's kind of scary. But just remember that device intent or mobile intent matters. It changes things. It's a ranking factor. And you can even see in Webmaster tools that Google is now specifically reporting on the different rankings for mobile, tablet, and desktop. They're not saying anymore that tablet and desktop are the same. They're not even trying. They're reporting on it as different and having different rankings. So not just mobile intent, but device intent. And they're trying to match those up. So let's talk just about mobile intent for a second. What might indicate mobile intent? And it's things like voice search, search for apps, local search, and map search. All of those things might give Google a clue that you have a specific intent that you want when you're searching from your phone. So let's look at a couple different variations on mobile intent. The answers that Dr. Pete talked about, these are very sensitive to intent. You can see that we have two very similar queries. One is what is the meaning of life, in which you get a narrative response, and then just meaning of life, which you get a definitional response. They're trying to anticipate. We have lots of different kinds of answers, featured rich snippets, and they're trying to answer your question in the best way that they see possible. We also have this thing that I call answer doubles, which is you're getting the answer box at the top, but then sometimes the result that has the answer also ranks number one algorithmically, so you have the same answer repeated one after another in the answer box and in the first ranking. That's kind of funny and looks like a bug to me. Whatever. You also see that Google is expanding the meta description to fit the full amount of the answer, and I think that they're using people as testing to determine which is the best fit of the answer. So we have it ranging from 134 characters to 340 characters. So if you have answers or if you're targeting answers, that's a great way to get more space in the result. We have the interactivity where you can play a video from the mobile search result without clicking through, or you can favorite something without clicking through. We have the carousels that give you a lot more rich information very quickly without scrolling down. Sneaky. And also we have the search boxes in the search result, which is just a great user perk. You don't have to click through and then search. You can search directly. That's great. We have the entity results. This is interesting. Look at these two different searches. One is Pixar superhero movie, and Google's like, we know. That's The Incredibles. But if you search for Incredibles, it's not the top ranking result anymore. The first ranking result is the Disney result. So they're trying to be fair here, it seems. That's nice of them. We also have the compound queries, and in this example, you see a search for Gotham, and then if you click into one of the Gotham episodes, Google actually appends that episode name to the original query, and you get a search result. But if you copy and paste that appended query into a new screen and search for it again, you get a different search result. And this is because Google is trying to have an additive or a compound experience where they're getting you closer based on your historical searches. They're getting you closer to what they think you want. Danny Sullivan wrote an article about this, which is the implied keywords or contextual keywords. You can say when you're standing under the Eiffel Tower, how tall is it? And enough people have done that that they anticipate, hey, they're asking about the Eiffel Tower. In a less travel-y way, you can just type in weather, and Google just assumes that you want the weather where you are, not where someone else is. Obviously, schema is a big deal, and schema is still driving mobile rankings. Don't skip out on schema. It drives click-through. It makes your results look great. And schema is how we do things like creating these beautiful Krum trails, which some people just kind of phone in, but it can be actually very strategic to do a good job so that people know that they're landing on the right version of the page. You can see Yankee Candle as actually doing a pretty bad job here because they're saying Yankee Candle - mobile instead of saying, Yankee Candle scented candles. Here's our scented candles page. Not great. All right. Now, this is where things shake up a bit. In your mobile SEO superhero training, what I need you to realize here is that the mobile-friendly algorithm update was interesting, good, cool, will change your job for probably the rest of your life, but what might have a bigger impact, and what I think Google might have been trying to distract us from, was the impact that apps are having on mobile search results and the bigger impact that they're gonna have soon. I think that Google gave us something to do, like make things JavaScript and CSS crawlable, because that's easy, so that we wouldn't notice that there are all of these massive new competitors coming into the mobile search results, taking the positions, like Dr. Pete said, up to 6 positions are lost to a really big app pack. 6 websites don't show up because apps do. There are a lot of different types of app results, and Google's been testing their presentation, but the main 2 types of app rankings are app packs, which link over to a download page for the app within one of the app stores, and then deep links for apps. Those link into a deep screen within the app. If you don't have the app installed, then they send you to the store to download it, but will link you deep into the app once you've downloaded it. What this means is we have Android and iOS specific intent, because when you think about an app pack ranking or a deep link ranking, they're going to show you only apps that you can download to your phone. So there are different apps in the Google Play Store as there are in the App Store, so you have different potential ranking when you search on an iPhone versus an Android device. Similarly, just because one app has deep links to an iOS app does not mean there's necessarily a Google Play app with those deep links, but Google has said that having deep links is a ranking factor, and it's a positive ranking factor. So if you have deep links, your stuff is more likely to show up in a mobile search result. So these things are changing from the 2 different operating systems. And so this is a great example where we have an app pack for the same 2 queries, or for similar queries. It works for the same queries. We have 2 different sets of results, one with a big app pack, one without, and that happens all the time. If you're unfamiliar with deep links, this is just to run you through what it looks like when you have a deep link. Deep links are sneaky because they look like regular links. But on an Android phone, this is what it looks like. If you click a deep link, it'll say, do you want to open this with the app or the website? And you can click just once or always, and then the phone remembers that behavior. What this necessarily means, at least for now, is that, remember I talked about Google crawling the app and using the desktop page as canonical. To get deep links indexed in Google, you have to have parity. You have to have corresponding web content for Google to crawl and count as canonical. We've seen a lot of indications that that is a short-term solution, or that's a short-term thing, and that Google is going to start indexing deep links that don't have web parity. That means even more potential competitors in your mobile search result, stuff that you may never even have thought of. So it's scary. Now, deep links are also interesting. Google, even if you don't care about Google indexing, deep links can help you if you're doing things like social media shares or trying to rank in Apple Spotlight search or trying to promote apps in your email and paid campaigns, because that doesn't rely on the Google indexing. You can create deep links and not care about Google indexing. So go ahead and create the deep links, even if not all of your content has web parity. It'll get you the jump when Google does start indexing those, but also it'll give you these opportunities. And my colleague Emily Grossman wrote a great article about getting those things indexed in Apple Search and Spotlight. Okay, so that's the big deal. Mobile friendly and apps. Now, we just need you to maintain your superhero status. Now that you've got it, how do you keep it? Just remember, mobile search is very much local, so do a great job if you have any physical locations. Use schema to mark up other things, not just your website, but also your emails, because these are ranking in Google's results. If you rank like on your phone, Google can crawl your Gmail, and if it's marked up, it'll show you the result in line. Not everyone else, just you personally. But this is going to happen more and more, this kind of stuff. Also remember that Google is trying to get money, and so they're doing a much better job with mobile sponsored results. They look really beautiful, and it's harder to tell that they are mobile, or that they're sponsored. So we have more buttons, we have more star rankings, we have bolding, we have the indented links, and that's a really compelling search result. And the only thing to tell you that it's sponsored, at least here, is that little tiny eye in the upper right-hand corner. They could be stealing your traffic. If you don't know what's happening in a mobile sponsored situation in your vertical, you absolutely should. It's especially compelling in TV and media because people know that, or Google knows that people consume this stuff on their phone. Videos and music are huge on phones. And especially in Android, the Android device comes with the player, so you don't even have to download anything to interact with a lot of these results. You just immediately click through and play. So they're making it a gorgeous result, and then you click through and you get to play it immediately. Also, let's pretend you have an app, but it doesn't rank in any of the app packs that you want it to. That's no problem, because you can have a sponsored app listing that looks awesome, sometimes looks better than the top of the app pack. Notice the icon, notice the star rankings and reviews, notice the free button that you can click on to download the app. Shopping, of course, comes up a lot in mobile. People use it to price compare. We've had the carousel for a while, and that's easier to spot. It says sponsored, but look at the one on the right. This looks like a knowledge graph / shopping result. It is a one product shopping result knowledge graph thing where we can click through and buy this particular iPad. Google's also working a lot in travel. And they have these feeds that they take in and they aggregate, and those are taking up a lot of space. And Danny Sullivan also wrote an article yesterday about how Google is testing allowing people to book their their hotel room directly from a Google SERP without clicking through anywhere. And of course, my guess is they're making money on those deals, right? But these do look like great results. So I'm going to end kind of where Dr. Pete did, talking about predictive search. Predictive search is huge. Google Now is huge. And it's where I go to know what Google's doing next. And what we're seeing with Google Now and their predictive search is a merging of Chrome, of Maps, of Google Play. They're all kind of coming together to share information in a way where you don't actually have to type a search in. Either you're using voice to submit a query, or there are a couple things that they've been testing that allow you to do other things. They haven't launched yet. I have articles coming out about click to search, where you can tap on a keyword on any page and execute a search with that. And that makes things like wearables totally functional, right? All of the predictive search, you don't have to look like an idiot talking to your watch. And it gives you what you need without you having to search for it, or you use voice. There are no keyboards on the watches right now. So that's the future, and that's what you've got to watch to maintain your mobile SEO superhero status. Kumbaya with phones. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Sam. That was probably one of the most actionable talks I've seen anywhere. So thank you for that. My favorite thing was when you said that Google will serve you different results if you live in a basement. Okay, so we got some great questions from Twitter. A question we get all the time. You said Google prefers responsive, right? But they have an MDOT site. Do I change? Is this going to affect my rankings? What does it mean when Google prefers this? How important is it for us to pursue that?
Google's been pretty clear to say that they prefer responsive design because it's easier for them to crawl. And if you think about it, when you have an MDOT and a desktop site, there's more potential crawling problems, and there's just more to crawl. It's double. So they would rather you just do one, and they'll understand that better, and then you don't have to deal user agent detection and redirection. You don't have to deal with the bidirectional annotation. There are just more things that can break when you have an MDOT. But if you have an MDOT and it's working fine for you, don't go in and redesign just to be responsive because you think it'll help your SEO. It might not. You've got to make a business decision for what is best for your users and go with that.
So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Okay, so you were talking about the fetch and render, and you mentioned interstitials. Am I saying that right? Interstitials?
That's how I say it.
Yes, it's one of those words you read, but you never pronounce. And we see these all the time when you're cruising mobile results, ads that are popping up, navigation things that are really hard to move around. How detrimental do you think those are?
Devaluing text is a problem. So think about the text that they're covering up. And think about the phrase initial page load. So perhaps, and I can't say that I've tested this, but what if the interstitial happens when you're lower on the page or after you've been there for a while? Maybe that's better, who knows? But Google doesn't like the idea of hidden text. And it's not just the interstitials. Also, if you have Ajax plus boxes or tray sliders that come in from the top or the bottom or whatever, that text isn't visible. If it's not visible in fetch and render, then it's probably being discounted. Or if it's behind an interstitial in fetch and render, it's probably being discounted.
Wow, and we see those all the time. Another great question from Twitter. So 5 years ago, everybody was asking the question, should I build a mobile site or should I get an app? And it was like an either or sort of question. Now you're talking about actual ranking benefits from having an app through deep linking. So the question now is, everybody's going to ask, should we get an app now? Should we get an app just to have an app? Or what are some of the qualifications people should be asking when they're making this decision?
So that decision has a lot, in my mind, to do with resources. Do you have the resources to build a really great app, and is there a business case for the app? I think if the app is going to do exactly what the website does, don't waste your time. Do other things, like build other content or have a better UX on your site. Don't waste the development time and money to do that. But if you have a unique reason to have an app that does something above and beyond what the website does, I think that's a good reason to build the app to spend the money. And also, I think right now we require web parity, or Google requires web parity, but I think soon they're not. They already have a form where you can submit and say, we have an app that doesn't have web parity, but we want to get indexed. They're not saying that they will, they just want to know about it right now. But they're on the way. And Apple Search is already indexing content that doesn't have web parity. And remember, Apple Search, if you're on an iPhone and you start a search, and you're getting spotlight results or the predictive stuff, that's Apple Search, that's not Google. They are cutting in front of Google. And they can surface deep app links that don't have web parity there, so you might never get to Google. The searcher might never get to Google.
We got a lot more questions that we're not going to have time for. You're on Twitter. You're awesome on Twitter. You're a MobileMoxie. Your contact information is on your deck, which is available on moz.com right now. Thank you so much. Cindy Krum.